Okay, good morning everybody. It's great to be here, my first conference. Just a little bit about me, I'm 46. I've been a secondary school teacher for 23 years. I'd never heard of CLL until I was diagnosed in February 2017. I'm married with 2 sons. They should be at home revising for their GCSEs and A-levels, but I bet they're not. I've a slight obsession with cricket, and I hadn't been to the GP more than twice in the 20 years before I was diagnosed. Now, I'm going to show 2 slides. The first slide really sort of starts with the beginning of my journey, and they really reflect some of the emotions and the highs and lows. So on this slide, the hard stuff, the injections, the infusions, the pills that generated no little element of fear and doubt and pain and feeling like complete rubbish for 2 weeks at a time while I was completing 6 rounds of FCR between April and September in 2017. However, at the other end, fantastically, this represents the things I like doing and the things that hopefully I carry on doing. So back playing cricket for Dunmow in Essex, where I live, running the Virgin 10K for the CLLSA last July, and then fulfilling a dream of taking my family to Australia last summer. And I think if I was going to have a message, it would be that CLL has taught me an awful lot about being positive and making the most of every day, and probably most importantly for my long term, a better balance between work and life. So, a little bit about how I ended up where I am today. So I went to the GP in January 2017 with chronic gastric pain, thinking I'd perhaps overdone it at Christmas. I had no other symptoms, although now I look at it, the periodic night sweats of the previous 18 months look like a bit of a red flag. The doctor gave me a really complete examination and completed the consultation with, "What the hell is wrong with you?" quote unquote. He asked to come back and see him again the following week. When he still couldn't work it out, he sent me for a blood test, and I guess it's pretty obvious that when the GP rings you the same day to tell you your blood test results, things aren't necessarily going to be great news. What followed was the magic of the NHS from my point of view. I had numerous blood tests, CT and PET scans, a pretty scary evening where I'd had a PET scan on a Thursday. I took a phone call from a hospital consultant on a Friday. He said, "I haven't seen the results of your CT scan, but I want to see you on Monday." Okay, and then an hour later, a different doctor ringing me to say, "I have seen the results of your CT scan, and I want you to go to A&E now because you have a blood clot in your groin area." So that's pretty scary. Friday night in A&E isn't necessarily the place I'd recommend. So then I started on my Clexane injections, which I did for 9 months. The whole looked like a road map of bruises across my abdomen. I had a period of in and out of work. I had some infections as my white blood cell count rose and rose. And when I went back to work after a period of absence of about 3 weeks, and the lady who works in the classroom next to my office said, "We thought you'd been sacked," I thought I probably ought to tell everybody what was wrong with me, and it was probably the best thing I did because people were amazing about it. So the doctors that I saw, I see Dr. Sitter in Harlow, and I saw Dr. Follows in Cambridge as well, said, "Let's get on with it." So we had FCR for 6 rounds, and that was fine. I tended to take 2 weeks off work and then go back for 2 weeks before the next rounds. Obviously I had to bear in mind, working in an environment with 1,600 young people, I had to be quite careful. But that was fine. I was pretty neutropenic most rounds, and I had to carry on taking the injections. Probably the worst thing about 2017, I didn't play a single game of cricket. That was a big miss for me, or I did get back into scoring, which was interesting. Now, I had 1 admission to A&E during that time when I had a very high temperature, but other than that, it all seemed to go pretty well. And my most recent letter from my doctor, who I saw in March, said I'm asymptomatic and completely well. So out the other end for me, I'm really thinking about what it means for me. So I've been involved in a bit of advocacy. I wrote to my MP, who was great, about the whole ibrutinib thing and making sure that that was accessible for lots of people. As I say, I ran the 10K for the CLLSA last summer and raised £1,000, so that was fantastic as well. And obviously I use my social media platforms to make sure people know about it. I think the last thing to say is, and I was talking to a gentleman on my table here about the balance between work and life. I'm stopping being a deputy head teacher this year after 15 years in senior management, and I'm just going to go back to what I love doing, which is teaching children. So I'm looking forward to that very much indeed in September. Thank you. That's my experience. Thank you.